Hey guys, it's Joe the Android guy. Today's topic isn't really Android related at all. It's something that you can apply to virtually any kind of modern technology. It's storage. SD storage to be precise. Those removable cards that give you more space on your phone or your tablet or your laptop, PC, camcorder, or even camera. What do you need to know about it? What different technologies are available out there, and what are some things that you need to look out for? That's what we're going to talk about in today's episode of the Android Guy Weekly. Okay, to lay the foundation, we're talking about removable storage. And removable storage comes in all kinds of different formats and flavors and specifications, and there's just lots of them. Today we're going to limit our discussion to the SD card format, but we are going to talk about one other format because it's kind of interchangeable with SD. So let's get right to that first. So before we had SD cards, we had these guys. This is an MMC card, or a multimedia card. This one is 128 megabytes. No, not gigabytes, megabytes. Now, MMC is kind of like a naked SD card. It's thinner, it has the same contacts on it, and it doesn't have that little write protect switch on the side. That's about it as far as external stuff goes. An MMC card is going to work in almost any SD card device. The slot's the same. What's different is where you get into something that you need to have the SD or the encryption, the secure part, which ironically, we hardly ever use. Kind of funny, huh? Now, today these guys get all the way up to 128 gigabytes in capacity. There's lots of different formats that you can get in an MMC card that are different than the evolutionary track that the SD cards took. So let's switch gears and talk about that. So let's talk SD cards. This one is a 512 megabyte or a half a gigabyte card from Kingston. It's one of my original ones, and you know, it does its job, and that's about it. It's got this nice little write protect tab on the side. It's got the same pinout, and it's a little bit chunkier. It's thicker. It's like an MMC card that has a plastic shell around it instead of just kind of a covering. So SD comes in various different sizes. We have the original SD card that we talked about already, and then we've got this nice little mini SD card. Now, they're different sizes, obviously, but they have the same pins on them. Not the same pinout, but the same pins. In fact, they're so similar, you can even get these little adapter trays, plug them in just like that, and now I've just turned this mini SD card into a standard SD card just by doing that. Now, that means that you've got to have all these little interconnections that are working properly. There's one extra point of potential failure. So after mini SD came micro SD. To compare them right there, you can see very, very small. Pinouts are a little bit different, but they have essentially the same contacts on there. You can even take your micro SD and get a little carrier there and plug it in, and now I've got a standard size SD card using just that micro SD chip. Now, I don't have the lock tab on the micro, but I do on the full size. So just something interesting to note. It's also kind of a naked chip where it doesn't have that hard plastic outer shell to it. It just has kind of the covering to it. In fact, you can see that just a little bit if we can get the camcorder to focus. You can see how it's just kind of laminated is all. It's not really encased. But that's what it is. So we've talked about our full size, our mini size, and our micro size SD cards. Now let's talk about capacities and different formats. Whether it's mini, micro, or standard, they all have the same type of capacity limitations as any of the others. They're essentially just the same type of card in a different package. So when I talk about SD and SDHC and SDXC, know that they apply to any one of the flavors, whether that's the standard, the mini, or the micro cards. So if we take a look at this guy, this is a SanDisk 1 gig micro SD card. And I know it's not focusing on that too well, but there's no speed indicator on that. It's just kind of a generic card, or what's called a class 0. It doesn't really have any class. Some people call that a class 1 because it was the first one out there. Next up, we have, of course, class 2, then class 4. Don't know why we didn't have a 3. Then we went up to 6, then 8. I didn't see any 8s, and then 10. So here's what it looks like. And they've got this neat little symbol. It's a C with a number inside it. So this is a class 6 card. We'll switch back over here to this guy. This is a microSD HC, and right above my fingernail, don't know if you can see that, is a little 10 inside that C. That's a class 10. Now that's as fast as you can get in the class denominations for a micro SD card, or really any kind of SD card. So what about them? Why do we have the different classes? Different things that you might do with your device may require different amounts of speed. For example, listening to an MP3 doesn't take that much speed. It's a relatively low bit rate. However, shooting full HD video, that gobbles up an awful lot of space, and you've got to be able to write that very, very quickly. Otherwise, you're going to start losing frames. That's never a good thing. So they came up with this class measurement so that different cards could be rated according to how fast they were. If you were just using basic storage, go ahead. A class nothing or a class 2 would be just fine. Class 4 you might want if you take a lot of pictures and do it relatively quickly, whether that's on your smartphone, your tablet, or even your dedicated camera. A class 6, well, class 6 was getting into the more professional level. If you are going to be shooting a lot of camera shots in fast succession, or if you are going to be doing basic HD video recording, basic HD being 720p, you'd probably want to jump up to a class 6. If you were doing full HD, however, you wanted to go all the way to a class 10 card. Now, that was going to help you so that you didn't have the dropped frames, so that the card itself wouldn't be the bottleneck, and you'd be able to write the data out as quickly as you needed to match the incoming source. Now, of course, that meant that your device had to be able to take advantage of that to write at that full speed. But the nice thing was, my class 10 card works just fine in a much slower, much older device that wasn't built when they had classes defined. There is another class of speed out there. It's called UHS, or ultra high speed. Instead of a little C with a number in it, it's a U, sometimes with a number in it. Now, why do I say sometimes? It's so new that they don't have anything beyond 1. So you might see that U with a number 1 in it, and they're usually just for these new SDXC cards. SDXC, you're going to see in SLRs, you're going to see in higher level video cameras, more prosumer. I don't even know if they've made it down to the prosumer level, or if they're still in the pro level. That's how new and how high end they are. You probably don't need them, but you need to know about them and know what they are and what they do. So, wrapping things up, what card do you need? So how do you decide what you need? Now, there's a difference there between want and need, because of course you want a 2 terabyte SDXC with a UHS 12. Doesn't exist, but you want it. Trust me, you do. I do. But then there's what you actually need. Okay? So if I've got a camcorder that accepts SDXC cards, but my laptop doesn't, I may go with an SDHC, because I can still get up to 32 gig capacity on it, and I can still get class 10 if I'm shooting full HD. So that'll do what I need it to do, even though I may want to do something better than that. If I've got an old device that only reads standard SD, well, I might want to take that into consideration as well, but it's a safe bet. Can't even say it, there's too many acronyms. SDHC, high capacity. That's the one that's your safe bet. That's the one that you want to get. Now, get it in as big a size as you can get, keeping something in mind. The faster you go, the more expensive it's going to be. So if you only need an 8 gig card, but you want a 16 gig card, or you may want a 32 gig card, but you need, say, a class 6, or your camcorder's not going to be able to record at full HD, you may want to scale back the size from 32 to 16 or maybe even to 8 so that you can go from a class 4 to a class 6 or a class 10 card. Just look at your options and weigh out which one is going to give you the best bang for your buck, and then see how much of the next step up from that's going to be. So for example, if you are looking at, say, a 16 gig card, you want a 32 but you want class 10, well, class 10, if it weighs out, you may settle for the 16 gig and save that money. If it's only 20 bucks to upgrade to a 32 gig and a class 10, by all means, go for it. If it's, about twice the cost of the card, you may want to consider getting two 16 gig class 10s. Again, it's up to you and your use. For me, I'll spend the extra money. I'll get the biggest capacity that I can and the fastest speed that I can, but I'm different from you. You might have different needs. So save money where you can, invest money wisely where you need to. That's all I've got for today. Now, I'm sure there was a lot of stuff in there that brought out even more questions, so please head over to the article at Pocketnow.com. I will have a hyperlink to that down underneath where you can just click. It'll be easy to get over there, and we'll kind of keep the conversation over at Pocketnow.com so we can aggregate everything there together. That's where I'm going to be answering the questions. I know I've answered a lot before on the YouTube comments, but I'm going to be heading over there. It's so much easier because it puts us all in one place. So go ahead and do that if you don't mind. If you like learning cool stuff, not just about Android, but about technology, give the video a big thumbs up. Of course, subscribe to our video channel if you haven't done so already so you don't miss out on future episodes, not only of this episode, but also some other stuff. There's a really cool new one that I think you're going to like called After the Buzz, Michael Fisher. It's really awesome, so subscribe so you make sure that you don't miss out on that. For Pocketnow, showing off SD, its technologies and speeds, I'm Joe, the Android guy.